Ready? Have a seat. Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. Appreciate y'all being here. Apologize for my absence last month. I wasn't feeling real well. With that, we have one new member, Warren Porter from City of Rose Hill as an administrator. He's going to be filling in for them now. He's the alternate and the mayor is indisposed at the time. So with that, we can approve of the January 14th agenda. Moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Where are the minutes here? Oh, there they are. Approval of the December 10th minutes. Kelly and Donna. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item C, Director's Report. Chad?
Thank you, Chairman. Board members, thank you. Quick update on the Transportation Improvement Program. I was about to say TIP, but for the sake of new members, I want to elaborate all the acronyms today. Transportation Improvement Program. In your packets, Kristen put together, what happened in the previous TIP and then what's upcoming TIP. Any questions you have, and Kristen and staff would be happy to clarify. Just another, the timeline is on the projection there. I also want to, staff also would like to report to you what progress we made so far and what's upcoming on TIP projects. As you can see on the screen, we started in November 2019. Until now, there was WAMPO funding menu projects that were prioritized. And we had an amazing selection committee, and their leadership helped us a lot in making this flow in a smooth manner. It's extremely difficult to have, when the funds are limited, to have the projects prioritized for the region, to meeting all the member jurisdictions. So they did an awesome job with all the limitations of the funding as well as the amount of projects that were received. So now the next step after the, prioritizing the funding menu was to what among those projects are going to go on to the TIP. So the same committee that helped us would be helping forward in accomplishing that, and we have a timeline for that to, around the March, April, to accomplish the TIP committed projects. So that's the next step. And then our end goal is to have the final document of the MTP, Metropolitan Transportation Plan, by June, so that the funding stream is flowing. That's the requirement to have the MTP adopted in June, so that transportation funding is committed and flowing smoothly to the region. So that's the quick report for you today on the TIP. If any questions, we'll be happy to clarify further. All right. And then a couple more items. There's planning and walkable places, PWP. That's in your packets as well for your information. And APBP webinar, that's January 15th. That's tomorrow, 2 p.m. here in the same offices. So that's great. Items that are not here, I would like to fill you in. There's one that's WSU, Wichita State University, is working on the future of the transportation infrastructure investments. That's the technologies. I mean, it's extremely important to preserve our existing transportation system, but the children and youth in 20 years, is the region prepared for the technologies that's evolving around other cities and the nation, like the connected vehicles or autonomous vehicle technology. So they're documenting all these examples of how it's progressing in other regions, and then how is Wichita getting ready or preparedness, that type of thing. So that's an exciting project, and they would be coming back and presenting to you the status for both TAC and TPB committees. So that's one. And then second is the freight and goods plan, we are working with trans systems, and the staff is looking to have some committee members for freight committee members. If you are interested in, identifying individuals who are very well aware of the issues of the truck parking or traffic or, shipping or any of that, please, talk to us, staff, and talk to me. I'm happy to have you on the freight committee. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Any questions? All right. Moving on, public comment. Jane, I believe you'd like to address the board.
Yes, thank you so much. You don't have so many inputters. You're really grateful when I come, right? My name is Jane Burns. I'm a registered licensed dietitian, that is a health professional, an outdoor enthusiast, and an advocate for wellness. The Center for Disease Control also wants to talk to you about health. Bethany said if there aren't enough, she'll email out more of those flyers. The Center for Disease Control wants to talk to you about health. It says that there's a growing awareness of the impact that transportation systems have on quality of life and health. They're recommending programs that promote health and ensure access to all. As a matter of fact, as we just saw on your agenda, and as Chad pointed out, there's a webinar here tomorrow called Health in All Policies. What I've read about that wondrous possibility is that the recommendation that all governmental units build health into all policies. And I hear that makes a major difference within communities. Healthful physical activity goes up and healthcare costs go down. So I have one solution. Safe bicycling and walking for a program that doesn't exist right now in WAMPO. It sure does in other places. It's called Safe Routes to School. And the CDC says that Safe Routes to School is one of a handful of programs that are cost-effective and show significant population health impacts within 5 years. Schools. I really admire principals of schools for sure. Nevertheless, the chaos of cars around schools can be scary. In fact, 20% of morning rush hour traffic is getting kids to school. So there's a congestion area element as well. Those of you who were on this board last November already know from this wondrous report that less than 1% of federal, state, and local funds were spent on active transportation for the years 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, for an average of $170 million a year. Less than 1% were spent on active transportation. And cars and trucks need to go places for sure, but I'm asking you all to go back to your communities and budget a little bit for those 1/3 of Kansans, Wichitans, Sedgwick Countyans who do not drive, so that school children and seniors, I know some seniors who shouldn't be driving. Do you? Handicapped, low vision tourists, and the changing demographics. Some of the talent that we want to keep in our area don't want to drive a car. They don't want to own a car. So for that 1/3 of folks who don't drive, they're not getting anything from your transportation money. So I hope you do that this year so that next year for We're dealing with school children this year, budgeting money, and next year, let's talk about those seniors and low vision and low income. Wellness happens where we live, learn, work, and play. How we move ourselves is critical, either sitting in a car or walking or bicycling. So please consider funding bikeability and walkability, such as safe routes to school. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank you,
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on to, new business, reimaging Move 2040. Chad?
Thank you, Chairman. The Move 2040 overview and schedule, just want to keep you updated on the progress on our Metropolitan Transportation Plan. Staff is working diligently with HDR consulting firm on producing several documents for the appendix of the document itself. For instance, the multimodal existing traffic conditions for the region itself. And then that includes all modes of transportation. So as part of that effort, we want to, keep you updated in the next TAC and TPB meetings, what products as we get from HDR and then Transsystems and all. So that's the status on that. And we anticipate to have public engagement during March, April, May timeframe so that the adoption goes smoother in June, the month of June. So that's the quick update on that. And then you all know how the project selection process is progressing towards that goal. On number 2, the WAMPO funding menu recommendation, you all have heard the project selection committee is diligently helping WAMPO in accomplishing the task of prioritizing the projects. And then the third, the major regional priorities is something that also has the selection committee for that. So both of these would be presented again for the tag for action and then followed by the next TPB meeting. So just a quick update on what's upcoming. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions? Okay. Major regional priorities?
We have great presenters today. Last meeting we had, 3 presentations. Now Dan and Brent and are presenting today, and we are happy to have them.
Good afternoon. I'm Dan Squires. I'm the Director of Planning and Engineering for the City of Derby. For those of you who don't know me, I've also been on the Technical Advisory Committee for the MPO for about 15 years. So I'm presenting the ARC 95 corridor improvements today. I think largely because I've been around since the original studies were done, but I do want to make sure that everybody realizes this really is not a Derby priority or a Derby need. It is a regional need for all of the southern WAMPO region and the south part of Sedgwick County. So while I'm presenting it, there's many more entities that benefit from this than just Derby. So stealing a quote from the WAMPO homepage from Benjamin Franklin says that if we fail to plan, we are planning to fail. And that's really what ARC 95 is all about. We cannot afford to address transportation issues after they're a problem. It's neither efficient or cost effective to do so. So this is about planning for the future and making sure that we proceed with planning for the future before some of those transportation challenges arise. So the communities in South Sedgwick County and the South WAMPO region desire to continue the process of planning for improvements to the 95th Street corridor now so that they can be built cost effectively. Just to familiarize with the region, the 95th Street corridor, I don't know if my mouse works. Okay, so that's okay. That's okay. The 95th Street corridor is an east-west corridor. in southern Sedgwick County. There is no crossing of the Arkansas River now, so you can see, and I can't point from here, but where the star is on there is the Arkansas River. We also have other barriers in the form of K-15 highway and BNSF Railroad that form an east-west barrier through that area. Spirit Aero Systems is just north of this picture off of K-15, and the Kansas Star Casino is just south along the turnpike there. So the corridor has a number of barriers and limited opportunities to cross those barriers. There have been a lot of traffic studies done in this area. It started with the South Area Transportation Study that was done by WAMPO in 2008. There was a 2011 South Meridian Corridor Plan, a 2012 South Broadway Corridor Plan, and the 2013 Casino Area Transportation Plan, all of which made reference back to the South Area Transportation Study, and then ultimately the ARC 95 study that was completed by Sedgwick County in 2017. So a lot of research being done to the transportation needs in this area and identifying the need for improvements. The South Area Transportation Study was done by WAMPO in 2008, as I said, and it indicated the need to make improvements to the corridor. Specifically, it emphasized a lack of good east-west corridor in the south area and the need for an additional river crossing. It specifically indicated that the existing river crossings at 47th Street, 63rd Street, and 83rd Street would exceed their capacity within about 20 years or by 2030. Well, that was in 2008. We're halfway there. So, now we're looking 10 years out and running into capacity issues on the existing river crossings. The ARC 95 study was completed by Sedgwick County in 2017, and it really took the South Area Transportation Study and refined it and made specific recommendations. So the South Area Transportation Study was a very good high-level view of the needs of the area. It evaluated different options, specifically looking at grade separation, a new grade-separated corridor all the way through the southern region. That was determined not to be very cost-effective. The numbers were kind of astronomical on that, and then landed back on maybe looking at a parkway system that could connect the south portion of the WAMPO region to northeast and northwest Wichita by connecting to Kellogg at 119th Street in Greenwich. So it developed cost estimates, it evaluated options, and also set up a phasing for implementation of the improvement. So this was a much more refined look at what needed to be done, what barriers were in the way, how those barriers could be addressed, and then how you would implement those improvements. The focus was on 95th Street between Broadway, US 81, and Woodlawn, which is just east of K-15. And included the potential for a new KTA interchange. So when the South Area Transportation Study was done, KTA was not, they were involved in that process, but were not, I would call them Luke Cold on the whole idea of another interchange to the turnpike. A lot has changed since then. KTA did a study of the existing interchange at Spirit Aero Systems and determined it would be very difficult to make that interchange functional. The technology has changed where they don't have attendants now, and the cost associated with attendants for tolling, and was much more involved in the ARC 95 study. And while they didn't commit to the interchange, they really said that they thought that there was a business case for that interchange and that they would be willing to look at it. So that was a pretty stark contrast from where they were in 2008 when we did the SATS study. It also evaluated options to cross the Arkansas River and BNSF Railroad at K-15. There were 4 different options that were evaluated as part of that process. And this was not a bunch of engineers sitting in a room saying, well, what do you think of this and what's it cost? Sedgwick County did a great job with this study, and there was robust public involvement in that process. There were a series of meetings with different options and ideas. They mirrored the meetings. They'd have one in Derby on one night of the week, and then they would come back and have one in Hayesville. And for those types of meetings, if you've attended those, usually we get some elected officials and some steering committee members and maybe a couple people from the public. But for that type of meeting, those meetings were really well attended, and there was a lot of feedback given. So all of those options were evaluated as part of the process, and there were a series of meetings held throughout that design process. The final recommendations of ARC 95 included 2 and 3 lane improvements with the ability to expand to 5 lanes, construction of a grade separated option at 95th Street over K15 and BNSF Railroad, and then it phased construction of those improvements. So again, I can't point, but if you see the magenta or the purple, it's okay. The magenta is phase 1, and that's really the lion's share of ARC 95. It's the crossing, and it's the big money piece of ARC 95. The rest of the phases of ARC 95 can fairly easily be implemented with local funding in fairly small chunks. But the magenta includes, here includes a little bit of improvement at US 81, and that's because as soon as you build the river crossing, the traffic increases and you're going to need additional lanes at that location. The big piece is the crossing of the Arkansas River and the new interchange at K15. And that's phase 1 of the improvements. It's fully directional at K15 and grade separated. It's the only river crossing south of 83rd Street, which is 7 miles before you get down to K53. And it's also the only grade separated crossing of BNSF Railroad south of Kellogg. So it provides a significant improvement in that regard. This is, again, the crossing. As I said, it's fully directional and grade separated, so you can get it over the railroad tracks. I mentioned the turnpike being supportive. I mentioned the public being supportive of these improvements. The railroad is supportive of these improvements. And if any of you have worked with the railroad, that is not always easy to say. The railroad, as part of this process in dealing with the county, actually agreed to allow a portion of the bridge abutments in railroad right-of-way. That's how they felt about these improvements, and it's almost unheard of for the railroad to allow anything to encroach into their right-of-way. So a lot of support because of the grade separation. This is a mechanism to get freight across the railroad without doing it at a grade crossing, and provides access to K15 in that process. Benefits of the project are enhanced safety and emergency response, improved traffic flow. I want to talk a little bit. This provides an alternate to a lot of traffic from K15. Specifically now, traffic that comes up K15, including trucks, a lot of it all the way up to 47th Street, where it queues up. The turn lanes at 47th Street cannot support the traffic demand for that left turn for northbound traffic. And so this provides turnpike access before you have to travel all the way through the K15 corridor to 47th Street. You can get on the turnpike and head north. So a lot of that traffic that comes up now and has to turn left and then drive through Oaklawn to get to interstates could use this corridor instead. It mitigates future congestion. It enhances freight movement. It improves multimodal access. It accelerates economic development. That entire 95th Street corridor becomes very advantageous to manufacturing development when you have direct access, grade separated to K15, and direct turnpike access from 95th Street. So there's a lot of vacant land out there that's available now that could be utilized in the future. And as I said before, it provides grade separated crossing of BNSF. The project supports 4 of the 5 stated outcomes of the MTP: safety and health, integrated multimodal transportation network, economy and mobility, quality of place and talent. And I should say that the study did also recommend pedestrian improvements and shoulders. So there's a pretty good safety enhancement there. And then also an opportunity, and what we hear, we've got a lot of bikers in Derby, and I think probably all of you do, is that there are not in the rural areas shoulders and things that facilitate bicycling out in the county. And so this does provide a mechanism for bicyclists also for an east-west corridor grade separation. Project cost for phase 1 is $62 million, and that's for right-of-way design and construction. And I know that sounds like a lot of money, but when you look at regional priorities and regional goals, because we're out ahead of this and planning ahead for it, it's pretty cost effective. I mean, that's a year's worth of right-of-way on some projects to purchase, and one phase of a larger project for construction. So I know the numbers are big, but when you compare it to other projects for the benefit that you're getting, this is a very cost-effective and manageable project. So why? Enhanced safety, economic development. It alleviates congestion and addresses future capacity issues. The next steps, it needs to be included in Move 2040 as a regional priority. Possibly a protective overlay. I know the county and city of Wichita have used that mechanism with the Northwest bypass. And then funding right-of-way and design so that we can continue to move forward and be prepared to access funds for construction and the improvements. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Got to push the button.
Okay. Well, thank you for the presentation. I know a little bit about this, of course, because I've been following this for about 6 years now pretty closely, but I'm curious if you have any information on the traffic counts on K-15 or Rock Road, and how close are we to some kind of limit that would really want to cause us to think about trying to find ways to mitigate those high numbers?
I do not have the traffic counts on K-15 and Rock Road. I can tell you that I think the projections in the study, and again, this was a county study, and I haven't reviewed it recently, but it seems like the projections for 20 years on this corridor were somewhere in the neighborhood of like 20,000 vehicles, which is similar to a Rock Road north of Derby type of traffic volume. But I'm talking a little bit out of turn there because I haven't looked at those numbers in a while. I don't know that specifically the numbers I can tell you that in Derby on K-15 at its busiest section, traffic on K-15 is about 26,000 vehicles. So,
Okay. And I think I'll dig those numbers up and just provide them to this board for just for information to have. But I guess I would just say from my perspective, there is no easy solutions to K-15 and Rock Road. Those are all complicated and difficult. And the train traffic going through Derby, do we know what the projections are for number of trains going through Derby?
I don't know about a projection, but the last count we had was 34 trains a day. And not only are they getting more frequent, but they're getting much longer. So the time that a crossing is out of commission, a grade crossing is out of commission, is longer than it used to be. The trains have really, even to the point now that at times the siding that is built along the railroad is not long enough for the size of the train, which creates some other challenges. So we're seeing more and more time where vehicles cannot cross the railroad tracks.
Just throw out some thoughts. I think when these studies began, the train traffic was much less back in 2008, and it's grown. And I think the projections are from talking to we've talked to Burlington, Northern Santa Fe in the past. I think the projections are it's going to go up, and I think it's indicative of generally a good thing for Kansas, but it's becoming a real problem. As you said, some of those trains are much longer than a mile and a half long. As by my count, I've seen them stop sometimes at 47th and they almost clear to 63rd Street sitting there. So certainly this is a very, very important issue. I don't know if you highlighted this or not, but I would just say public safety, being able to cross the river and the railroad tracks at various places is very important. Most of our public safety resources are to the east of those two things. And there's no really great place to cross unless you go clear to Mulvane or clear into Wichita. And when those trains are sitting there, or there's emergencies on the other side of the river, on the other side of the tracks, it's sometimes very, very difficult. And I think it impacts our public safety resources getting to some of those emergencies. Anyway, I would just say that the other thing I've been looking at, Sedgwick County GIS has accident data that they make available. I can't seem to find data in our system for the Northwest, for the North Junction, so I don't have that data available. But for the data we do have, the number one intersection that's the most dangerous in Sedgwick County is, without question, 47 and K-15. I've got those numbers, and it is with nothing on the horizon to relieve that pressure other than Route 95. And so I would argue that this is a very important project. I wholeheartedly support that, and thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Anyone else comment, James?
I don't talk very often here, so. One of the things I haven't seen, I know that we've talked a lot about some of the economic development activity that could happen because of this down in that corridor, but I also know that a lot hasn't happened because of the amount of floodplain area that's down in that part of Sedgwick County, south of Wichita. What analysis has been done on the flooding in the area, and is there a drainage plan that is going along with this as well?
I don't believe, I'm not aware of what drainage study has been done on the entire area. I can tell you that I think portion of the siting of the location of the crossing and lining it up where they did is because of the cost to try to span the floodplain over the Ark River. So it widens out pretty good there, and that was taken into consideration of the design improvements. But I don't think that the transportation study per se addressed drainage in other portions of the southern Sedgwick County.
I just think even beyond that area where it crosses the river, if this is something that moves forward, there really needs to be a comprehensive look along the whole corridor. If economic expansion is one of the things that we want to use to sell this, being able to develop in floodplains is going to be an issue if that does get looked at close. So that was just my only comment.
Anything else for Dan? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Moving on to the North Junction.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Brent Turstrip, District 5 Engineer at KDOT. A little bit about myself. I work in 18 counties, Sedgwick County one of them. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the North Junction. I think this is a 5-minute presentation with 30 slides, so I have to go 10 seconds a slide. If you have a question though, as we go through, yell at me. So I have to find it. There we go. So a little bit about the North Junction, the issues there everybody's familiar with. In the morning, you have an issue coming into town, and particularly northbound 235 into the area. And then in the evening, you have an issue going northbound on 135 to go southbound on I-235. Everybody's familiar with the loop ramp up there. A little bit about the interchange. I have some notes I'll flip through as we go. This interchange was designed and opened to traffic in 1964. The 1957 plan show the traffic at 9,330 vehicles per day. Anticipated ADT in 1975 was 23,500 vehicles per day, 2.5% trucks. Coming in from the interchange from the east, we've got about 19,000 vehicles. From the west, 52,000 vehicles. From the north, 47, and from the south, 78,000. And it's about 10% trucks on 135. The study area for this project extends all the way from West Street to Hillside and from 21st Street to 53rd Street North. Like to look at needs for highway systems in terms of congestion, and we use level of service A through F. This is in your handout somewhere in one of these. I don't think I made it into both presentations, but generally a report card, A is good, F's bad, and in our system we add an E in between D and E. E and F are unacceptable. And in this beginning of show in the morning, this shows the level of service F, which is coming into town in the morning, right over here, and then going north in the evening, another level of service F. This is a future no-build 2050 anticipated traffic, shows really a complete breakdown at the North Junction, so bad that it affects traffic all the way back to 96 coming in. And you can see in the PM, again, it affects traffic, obviously still northbound, but all now 254 and 235 and 96 are thrown in there even worse. This is just a fact sheet showing what we looked at for the North Junction improvements. This shows 3 phases of the project that I'll talk about. First one, we identified some high priorities. There's quite a few high priorities on this interchange, but one of the number one is the loop ramp up north, up here. This flyover ramp takes care of that issue. The southbound, or the morning congestion for traffic on 235 wishing to enter the interchange. That's taken care of by separating, not grade separating, but separating them, not having to merge with 135 traffic. And then this other improvement down here, we'll talk about that a little bit more in a little bit. So the first phase of this interchange project is actually under construction already. We're doing the green project right now. Good thing to think about the green project is right now you have 2 lanes over the river. In the future, there'll be 3 continuous lanes over the river with a 4th lane that's an auxiliary lane for off-ramp for Broadway and or an on-ramp for Broadway. So pretty major improvements underway up there. You can also see how much of a change there is in the connection of Broadway from, this area here is where the old ramp was, so widens out a lot, and you can see that when you drive through. This touches on a little bit what I mentioned earlier. High priorities for this area, the flyover, the direct connection from, and also the auxiliary lanes on K96. This is a concept of just the Gold project as it stands currently. It shows the flyover, it shows just a picture. This is the phase 3, the final phase of the project. After Gold is constructed, we construct what we call the purple phase. And in that phase, 135 northbound, southbound are put back right next to each other. And also the east-west portions of 235, 254 are put back together. And that allows for quite a few things to occur during the purple phase. It removes the left exits and replaces the remaining bridges up there also. This is a close-up, a better view of that area with the purple and the gold and the green all shown together. And there's some interesting movements here. When you look at southbound 135, your decision to move and to come down this direction gets separated way back up north of 45th Street. So as part of that, any project KDOT has that goes over, used to be $25 million, I think it's $50 million, has to go through a value engineering study, make sure we're spending our money wisely, we're doing the right things. That study was conducted. In your packet, all this is in there, but it shows 7 alternates that were considered. First one is construct a flyover instead of a dual lane loop ramp, restripe K96 to 11-foot lanes, construct a 2-lane ramp for westbound 96 to 135 northbound. And also talks there on number 6 about deferring one of the movements till later. Part of this, when we look at that number 1 priority of that loop ramp, we're taking the loop ramp. The north loop has 14,305 vehicles a day on it. The south loop, or the proposed dual lane loop ramp that was being for westbound K96 to southbound 135 actually has 16,220, so it has more vehicles on it than the northbound loop. If you like going 30 miles an hour on system-to-system interchanges on loops, then just raise your hand. Nobody appears to. So we thought it'd be a little bit better to look at a better option. With that, we decided this is kind of a shotgun approach at what we looked at. You can see quite a few different options here. The gold is still shown, the 2-lane loop is still shown in each of these with other options. So the North Junction Gold project, what it does, it reduces the congestion. Talked about all these items. It ties into the green project really well. That's what it was designed to do. It provides that direct connection. And these value engineering proposals, I'll talk about these a little bit. The 2-lane loop and the K96 expansion. And also I want to talk about the acceleration of the North Junction. So we went to a meeting 3 Mondays ago during that snowstorm up in Topeka, and we visited internally about what's the best thing to do here, and we agreed to move forward with, I'm going to call it the Not Gold project. I don't know what color that is, magenta or something, but that's the one we're proceeding forward with. It is instead of the Gold Project widen these existing bridges over the railroad, it makes new structures over the railroad. Existing structures already they're challenged by vertical clearance for the railroad. Encroaching on that anymore is not a good option, so this sets it up for the future. As part of a program we call a cost share program, we started off looking at what we could do to make a better improvement to this interchange, because this is the highest priority in the region. We heard that loud and clear. That getting rid of that northbound movement and the loop ramp's a really high priority for everybody in this room and KDOT. So we looked at what we could do. We came up with an option. This was an option we proposed to. This was talked about between KDOT and the city and the county, and this option started moving forward. Issue with this option is it doesn't create a full connection. So we decided, if we can, and there's some issues with crossing the channel down here until all the permitting is in place. We think we can work through those, and ultimately what the cost share program is, it's a full-blown build the entire flyover ramp for northbound I-135 to southbound 235, do away with that loop ramp. And as part of that, southbound I-135 movement to southbound I-235, that ramp is reconstructed also, new bridges over the railroad. And so this is a cost share program, 25% match, but the city, county, and KDOT all together. WAMPO top 5, I just threw them all on one slide because I thought this would be kind of long. Safety and health, this project continues to reduce conflict points and modernizes ramp movements. It's integrated, we currently have a level of service F on I-135. It could over-promote local system usage. If there's a backup or a breakdown, people divert right now. It reduces congestion that could adversely impact the economy and will impact mobility. It maintains the expected commute times and maintains a level of service that's desired. So that's the North Junction. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you. Sure. On the accelerated project, I will mention that we anticipate letting that project in February 21, and we hope to have it completed within 18 months. The next one I want to visit on is the Blue Project. When I first started at KDOT, I started here in Wichita, and in 1999, I remember Mr. Traverti asking me to find a way to get that third lane that's striped out on 54 eastbound back to 3 lanes going across the floodway, and that was the first project I worked on. We got it back to 3 lanes. The bridge wasn't ready to take that much traffic on those areas, but we got it back there. So that project, this is an overview of it. It was constructed 1960, I think opened in 62. Back in 1957, it had a traffic count of 2,210 vehicles a day. And anticipated in 1975, it would have 8,750 vehicles a day. Currently, from the north coming down, and the trucks are anticipated to be 5%. Southbound movements coming into the interchange is about 43,000 vehicles a day. Coming in from the south or going north into the interchange is about just under 50, about 49,000 vehicles a day, and it's almost 9% trucks. East and west on US 54 Kellogg, we have about 83,000 vehicles a day there, and about 4.5% trucks. So it's interesting, look back what these things, what anticipated traffic counts would be in the future. The next slide shows, it has fiscal year 2016 numbers on it. You can do your own proration, or we could update these. But this was a slide back when the RED project and all these projects were very active at the time. This is a 4-phase improvement. What's out there right now is the first phase of 4 phases. RED dealt with mainly the movements from 235 to 54. Blue does 54 to 235. Yellow redoes 54, and green does Central. Study area for these improvements really went from Ridge Road to West Street and from K42 to Zoo Boulevard. This is an image showing traffic accidents at that interchange, 2002 to 2004 data. The blue represents property damage only, and the red is an injury accident. And you can see they're bunched up around the conflict points or where the traffic has to merge together. So these are definitions for level of service that you could use. Again, E and F are unacceptable. So anytime we do a project, we do modeling of traffic. What's out there now? What's it going to be like 20 years down the road? This 2006 information when we did this showed that northbound movements had an issue. I know we've all probably seen traffic back up from Central off-street ramp at the time back onto US 54 and get all way back on the shoulder and even encroach into the lane. And that's what's represented here. The 2030 anticipated impacts back when this was done showed the level of service being impacted very adversely if nothing was done at the interchange, particularly southbound, and also really each direction from the interchange. These are some concepts when we went through the design process. What does that interchange going to look like for the future? And ultimately, we selected a fully directional 50-mile-per-hour ramp. Has a braided ramp down, you can see at the bottom down here for West Street. Lots of you have probably taken that ramp and seen that where you it's called braided because you intertwine those two movements. The Red Project field check, when we did the Red Project field check, I remember this very well, in 2012 there was some issues we addressed. One of them was we decided at the field check to go ahead and add that auxiliary lane to 235 from Central all the way down to the interchange. With that, we widened the Maple Street Bridge. Bridges over 54, those are some old dinosaurs. They're a bridge structure type that doesn't last very long. It's a sonotube, it doesn't work very well. We went in and wrote a really tight calendar completion date to fix those bridge surfaces, so hopefully they'll last till the next project comes through. And preservation of I-235 median. I mean, if we need to ever widen that to the inside, the pier configuration on those plans wouldn't have allowed it. So they were modified, and now it opens the corridor up to be able to widen to the inside if it's ever needed. This is again a picture of it prior to anything being done. And this image shows this is looking north. It shows the Red Project, shows the flyover bridge would take off right here and come over, and the other one coming from the other direction. So just kind of an interim shot. And this is a shot of well, let me go back I don't want to go back. But what it did show in the previous slide was the auxiliary lane also being constructed on I-235. This one, I think you might be able to tell that auxiliary lane is being constructed also, but it's difficult. And really what this looks like is kind of like an hourglass in the middle of the interchange. Little fully directional ramps. And this is a rendering of the completed Red Project. This slide just kind of shows again further north the Green Project, how it takes care of the issues at Central. Shows all the projects together. And we're going to look at really the area with the worst traffic flow at this interchange. And that occurs on the West Street on-ramp right down here. So this is the interim Red Project. You can tell the hourglass of the fully directional movements from 235 to 54 are constructed in here. See this this is the old ramp right here, and then this little, maybe this is better, this is easier. This is the old ramp right here, and then this is the new ramp that was constructed. And really, this project sets us up, gets us set up to begin the blue project. So the main issue we have with the interchange currently is, and this was already known when the red project was built, there were a couple items that were known. One of them is the narrow shoulder on US 54 that's out there right now. That's an interim condition. And also the weaving movements that happen for West Street. West Street wants to come on, get on 54, and westbound 54 wants to go north on 235, and that movement right there causes congestion and backup. It's another close-up of that area. And this is projected level of service at 2020 we have as a result of the West Street movement. I'll briefly go into now what the blue project does for that movement. This is a close-up that shows West Street is separated from US 54, and West Street, that merging movement is taken out. Probably boring looking at plan sheets, but at least there's some signs on here to show you what you see. So there's 3 through lanes on US 54, and there's a dedicated lane right here. That dedicated lane will go northbound to I-235. As you come across that dedicated lane over here, you go northbound to I-235. There's also an opportunity for you to go southbound. So this ramp that's going to be constructed is 2 lanes wide. West Street is still up north of this improvement, hasn't come in yet. Really, this is where everything kind of mixes together. You've got 54 already on these 2. 1 lane will go to northbound, 1 will go to southbound. And West Street has the opportunity to merge back in this area. When they come on to 54, they merge with the northbound traffic under a normal condition. If they want to go southbound, they go underneath. And right in this area here where West Street goes underneath, the one loop ramp that you still see on this project is dedicated for westbound West Street, for West Street to go southbound on I-235. That's the only people that use this loop ramp right here. So when you see this in the final configuration, it's important to remember that part of it. It completes the interchange, makes it fully directional in all directions. And there's a rendering of it. You can see the red project here, the little hourglass looking thing. And I don't know what this is, a Tootsie Roll or something. It's just kind of the other movements here. This would be eastbound 54 to northbound 135. This would be westbound 54, comes up and over to southbound I-235. And it would be the first, what I'll call, 4-level interchange in Wichita. This is just a slide, kind of tells you what the blue project does. Talks a little, it shows the widening. When this blue project would go, West Street gets widened to the north to make that all happen. Similar WAMPO top 5. It reduces conflict points and it modernizes ramp movements. Interchange is pretty outdated. Level service F on 54 could over-promote local system usage, and it reduces congestion. That could impact mobility, maintains the expected commute times, and it maintains a level of service that's desirable. So with that, it's a pretty quick overview of 2 of those projects. We work on a lot, but I'd sure be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Appreciate the information and update.
Sure.
See, so we'll go on to the executive committee or the committee updates. We met last month. We, as the executive committee, looked at 1.5% raise for all employees, which mirrors the cost of living. And we are putting together, Chad is working on putting together a new salary scale for all employees to see where, and we'll have a report on that in the near future. We also discussed the employees manual. There again, this is one of the other tasks that we've assigned to Chad to work on, and he and Kelly with the law firm are working on that diligently, and several of those issues. Anyway, that we also discussed, which is part of ours, is the election of the new board chair and vice chair and TAC. That will be coming back to us next month. So if some of you are interested, please let me know. We will, I know that myself and David, we're in our first year, but possibly 2 years. It doesn't have to be. We made it where you could do it no more than 2 years. I think, Tom, you're in the same boat with TAC. So we're going to be discussing and then taking nominations and whatnot for that and at the next meeting. So like I said, if you have an interest, if you contact Chad or myself, we'll go from there. You got anything to add on that? Executive committee, Cindy?
So we're just going to take nominations from the floor, or will there be a slate?
Nominations from the floor.
Okay.
So, with that, Tom, you got anything from TAC?
Stuff's been covered on here today, other than the task team that I've got, that I've been working with the major regional priorities. They've met a couple times. There's been some information pulled together. Plan is to present that at the TAC meeting for approval and changes or anything that may come up later this month, and that being brought back to this group for the next WAMPO meeting. So there'll be a presentation, and we're going to let staff do that. So with the recommendation of the team and the recommendation of the TAC, we'll come back to this team.
All right, partners, Brent, are you giving, or Mike, who wants to go? Brent, you have anything for us, or? Okay, thank you. Mike?
I can talk for both of us, maybe. I don't have anything official. Just wanted to thank everybody for participating in the 2019 round of local consulate. We had 2 rounds statewide, 2 meetings here. A lot of good conversations. Thank you all. We'll stay on top of the outputs from that as we go through the 2020 session. We are excited about that. Also wanted to, I guess, ask permission. Can I give an update on our long-range plan update next month? Not now. You don't want to hear it right now. I'd push my way through it right now. I need a month to prepare. So, Chad, I'll talk to you about that if that's all right. And also, one more time, Chad, welcome to Wichita. We're glad to have you here. We're glad you're part of the Kansas transportation community as well. So thank you for, we know you had a choice when you chose your next career path, and we're glad you chose Kansas. So with that.
I don't think anybody from the feds, nobody, Richard's not here. So with that, is there any other business before the board? If not, we stand adjourned.